for coming here this evening. All three of the candidates on the Republican nomination side for the 8th Congressional District are here. We drew numbers backstage in the green room for order of operation and opening statements. And through what became a much more complicated process of elimination than I thought it would be, they chose numbers too close together. We have the order, and Tony Wied will open things tonight with the first opening statement. You have 3 minutes, sir. Please proceed.
Well, first off, thank you, Providence Academy, for hosting us here tonight. What a beautiful school, and what a great example of schools where parents lead the school. So thank you very much. And also thank you, Joe Gigante, for hosting us here tonight. So who is Tony Wied, the Trump-endorsed conservative in the 8th Congressional District race? So I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. 6 months later, I moved to Green Bay in Ashwaubenon. There I went to public schools through 8th grade. I went to Catholic school at Notre Dame Academy in high school. I then decided to go, since I loved playing football and loved playing hockey, I decided to go to St. Norbert College, another great Catholic school, for my college education. There I met the love of my life, my junior year. Angela and I got married about 2 years after college. We had 4 children within 4 years in our 20s. We decided to get into business. We decided to get into this gas station, convenience store business that we were in. And so we had a very, very busy 20s and 30s. But I've been here my entire life. 2 years ago, we had the great fortune and the blessing to sell our business. And so for about a year and a half, we decided to sort of let it all out and decide what our next step was going to be. And, you know, I wanted to find something where I could spread good around the world, where I could find my biggest purpose in life. And I've always loved the United States of America. This is an amazing country. It's the only place in the world where you can live the American dream. And I decided, after much prayer and reflection, and with the resignation of Mike Gallagher, that this is exactly what I am meant to do. So I went on a journey, and we put together an amazing campaign team, and we decided right then and there that this is exactly what I am meant to do. So look, career politicians, and as I sat back, career politicians are absolutely failing us. And we see it all the time. You know, they look good, they dress good, they speak very well, but they don't know what they're doing, and they are absolutely failing us. And that is what has got me off the sidelines. We see the chaos and the total dysfunction in Washington. Our border is completely under siege right now with drugs and criminals just coming in unchecked. We see inflation rampant. They say it's 20%, but I'm hearing figures of 30, 40, and I see even 50% increases of prices for regular, everyday goods in the grocery store. Meanwhile, our adversaries around the world are completely taking advantage of us. And I am here tonight, and it is my honor to have you hire me to be your representative, to serve you in the United States Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Andre Jacque, you are next in the order that we chose backstage. Your 3-minute opening statement, please.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I'd like to thank Regular Joe for providing this opportunity to inform the voters about the differences between all of us. I think there are some important distinctions to be made. Certainly would like to thank Providence Academy for providing the venue, and of course our media partners for helping to share this information. Proud to live in De Pere with my wife and kids. I know my parents and some of my older kids are with us tonight. I am running for the 8th Congressional District to fight for our families, for our communities, for our values, and for our future. Quite frankly, this race was too important for me to sit out. I had a lot of people asking me to run so that there would be a proven conservative choice, because we've had too many people that just tell you what you want to hear at election time, but they let you down when you're in office. And the reality is, when we had President Trump and a Republican Congress, they let us down. We didn't put our country on a responsible path the way that we could have, and we're paying the price now. We're seeing not only the chaos at the border with drugs and thugs streaming across operational control handed to the Mexican cartels, Biden inflation that is cutting into people's retirement savings, their ability to put food on the table. And quite frankly, both of those are issues that we can only treat the symptoms of at the state level. So I decided to run. And I'm very proud to have the support of a majority of the Republican sheriffs in the 8th Congressional District, the Wisconsin Professional Police Association, the Milwaukee Police Association, the National Association of Police Organizations. They've all endorsed me. One thing you'll also hear, I'm the candidate that's not afraid to say that I am proudly pro-life. And I have the record to prove it, that I have consistently removed abortion subsidies for elective abortions at the state level to the tune of tens of millions of dollars annually. But the largest abortion subsidies still reside at the federal level. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the Wisconsin Conservative Digest. I'm also proud to be the only candidate to have a 100% rating with the Northeast Wisconsin Conservative Coalition. So you're going to hear a lot tonight about where the candidates say they stand on the issues. What you have to figure out is which one means it. And I'm proud to be the proven conservative fighter that has the scars to prove it, even if I'm not on Robin Voss's Christmas card list. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre Jacque. Roger Roth, you are up with the final opening statement, please.
Thank you and good evening. I think it's fitting that tonight we're here after a very successful convention week down in Milwaukee where we nominated President Trump to be the next president of the United States, that we're here having a spirited debate. I am Roger Roth. I am running for Congress. I'm a 25-year home builder, 20 years in the Wisconsin National Guard with multiple deployments to the Middle East, still serving in a fighter wing as a captain here in our state. I've also served a few terms in the state legislature, right along Governor Scott Walker, who is endorsing me in this race as the principal conservative to go to Washington and work with President Trump to get this country moving in the right direction. But you know what? The accomplishment I'm most proud of is my amazing family. My wife and I are humbled to have 5 amazing little boys. And we know that with that honor comes great responsibility, which is why we choose to homeschool our kids and instill in them Judeo-Christian values that we get at our local church just down the road in Appleton. And for my wife and I, the greatest honor of our lifetime is that those 5 little boys, including the oldest who just turned 11, they still call us mommy and daddy. Friends, Washington is broken. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the border is a mess. 10 million people crossing illegally. There have been, in the last year, 1 billion doses of fentanyl, taking the lives of 100,000 Americans. I will go to Washington, work with President Trump, and secure that border on day one. In Bidenomics, it's crushing the middle class. For my wife and I, we can't get through the grocery store for less than $300 a week. We go through 5 gallons of milk, 4 loaves of bread, 3 boxes of cereal, countless goldfish crackers and yogurt tubes, applesauce pouches. We simply can't afford 4 more years of the Biden-Harris administration. And on national security, nothing has been more sickening or harder to watch than their systematic and purposeful decline of America's military abroad. Is the person here on the stage who's worn a uniform. I will go to Washington to make sure that our men and women have the training, the resources, and the equipment they need to take the fight to our adversaries. Friends, we good conservatives here in this room know that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. That is why it is with great humility that I ask for your support and your prayers and for your vote on August 13th. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Now, for those that are watching on Fox 11 online live stream, those here, I failed to introduce to my right, and seldom will I ever say there's someone to my right, but is Charlie Kipley, the producer of the Regular Joe Show, who's the official timekeeper. Now, anyone familiar with who people that are producers know They are taskmasters, so he will be very, very stringent on the time. You guys are doing great, just so everyone knows who he is, why he's here. So I'm going to start with one of the biggest stories, frankly, of all of our lifetime, certainly in the last week. Last Saturday, many Americans, most Americans watched with horror as we came to within a quarter of an inch of Donald Trump's assassination live on television. There are many questions that remain, certainly investigations to be done, but what we've learned in the ensuing days are pretty challenging facts that we have to rectify. As the next representative of the 8th Congressional District, if you were there now, if you were part of that caucus, as we've seen the response or lack of response from Kimberly Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, and I'm asking for a specific set of things you think could be done. It will be in the same order as before. What do you think should be done to Kimberly Cheadle, the lack of forthrightness that she's given, and more importantly, given the situation where this assassination even had the chance to take place? What do you think should be done to her? And as a member of Congress, what would you be advocating right now? We begin with Tony Wied. It's 1 minute per answer.
Well, I think we'll always remember where we were the day that President Trump got shot. She needs to be fired immediately. That is an absolute disgrace.
Please hold your applause till they're done.
It's an absolute disgrace that we are not protecting the President of the United States, the previous President of the United States. And I will, absolutely, we need to hold congressional hearings right away. We need a full investigation of what exactly happened that day, who it was, how it happened, and we need to make sure that we prevent it from happening again. And that is not acceptable. She needs to know that she failed, and there needs to be a complete overhaul at the leadership of the Secret Service.
All right, well, and we have a few seconds left, so just pause. I'll give you a 15-second follow-up. You said she should be fired. That would obviously be the job of Joe Biden. We know where he doesn't know where he is right now, so that's not going to necessarily happen. Would you advocate in the lack of action by Joe Biden? Is there something you think Congress should do if Joe refuses to do that?
Well, we need to initially start congressional hearings right away and bring her to the Hill and start the questioning. But we have to absolutely put pressure on the President of the United States. That's why we need President Trump in office right now, to make sure a strong leader would not let something like that happen.
All right, thank you, sir. Andre Jacque, you are next in line. Do you need the question repeated, or do you have?
No, I think I've got it.
All right, go right ahead.
I think the important thing is that we don't need endless hearings with no action taken. Yes, Kimberly Cheadle needs to be fired. But on top of that, we need to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas again, because Homeland Security oversees the Office of the Secret Service. And we know that there were repeated requests for additional security by the Trump team. We know that Robert Kennedy was being denied any sort of coverage for security by the Secret Service. And so we absolutely need to bring to the forefront the failures of our Department of Homeland Security by impeaching Alejandro Mayorkas. And I would say a single congressional committee as opposed to endless hearings that are going to go nowhere.
All right, we have 9 seconds left. I just want to give a quick redirect. Anything, same question I asked to Tony, anything specific that if nothing is done on the executive side, anything else or specific you think Congress can do to better intervene?
Well, I mean, certainly oversight is important, and again, Congress should always look at the power of the purse. I think when we look at the failure of DEI across the Biden administration, clearly that's a factor with Secret Service. Thank you.
All right. Same question to you, Roger Roth.
Yeah, last Saturday was a horrific day. And when I first heard the news, someone texted me, and it was almost with disbelief, like this couldn't happen. And we were coming back from campaigning, watching with my little boys, and some of them were moved to tears just seeing what was happening that day. I think it's very important. The House Oversight Committee is bringing the Secret Service in this next week, and they're going to begin the hearing. So that's an important first step. But to me, it's just shocking how the initial reaction coming out of the Secret Service was to blame local law enforcement. I don't know about you, I don't know much about what goes into the intricacies of protecting a president or foreign dignitaries. But I had always thought that local law enforcement was an augmentation of what the Secret Service was. And the fact that they went to them first and threw them under the bus, I thought that was unfortunate. She does need to be fired. And to get to the question Joe's going to want to ask me as a follow-up like everybody else, I think Congress needs to make sure that we are offering President Trump the same level of protection that Joe Biden gets. And he's not getting that right now.
All right, I'm not going to ask the follow-up because you already answered it. Thank you, Roger Roth. I have a 30-second follow-up on this to everyone. The reason it's going to be a shorter question is we're going to get more in-depth on this topic in a different section. Of course, the ladies of The View, among other left-wing talking heads, their initial response and throughout the week has been that the answer to this shooting, this assassination attempt, is we should be looking at heavier gun control. Do you think that is the right answer? Yet, why or why not? We'll start with Tony.
Well, guns aren't the problem. And I think the Second Amendment is solid, and we can never let the government infringe upon those rights, nor would I ever let anybody infringe upon the Second Amendment. And it is clearly an issue. We need to find out exactly how it happened, why it happened, and rectify that and make sure it doesn't happen again.
All right. Thank you, sir. Andre, Jacque.
Yeah, absolutely not. When we're talking about The View, who is certainly a major contributor to Trump derangement syndrome that has caused any number of issues. But I am very proud to be the candidate, not just with the A rating from the NRA, but the only candidate that has an A rating from Gun Owners of America and the Wisconsin Firearms Coalition. And I think the question is why my opponents aren't willing to answer those tough questions to make sure that the Second Amendment shall not be infringed.
All right. Roger Roth.
I definitely disagree with The View. This isn't a Second Amendment problem. The problem here was that the Secret Service allowed an exposed rooftop 130 yards from where the president was at an elevated position. They allowed that to not have any surveillance. That was the problem. We need the accountability, and we're going to get that. I will bring that in the next Congress.
All right, we're going to move on to another area, another topic section, which is border and immigration. Rachel, Marin, Lakin, Riley, these are all names that Americans have come to know, unfortunately, because they have been tragically and brutally murdered by illegal immigrants. This is a yes or no question. Will you commit to mass and total deportation, as President Trump has said he will do if reelected, of illegal immigrants, knowing there will be quite loud public backlash from some sectors, especially in the mainstream media? We begin with Tony Wied.
As the Trump-endorsed conservative in this race, I support President Trump, and I agree that we have to deport illegal immigrants.
You got a little time if you want to, we can go on, but do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, we have to, along with all of the other measures that President Trump had in place when he was in office that were effective. We had a 90% reduction in office with President Trump's measures, including building the border wall and the Remain in Mexico policy, which was a policy that doesn't allow people to come across the border and then apply for asylum. You have to apply for asylum in the country of origin, and it absolutely works. And we need to fund better and continue to fund the border patrol agents down at the border.
All right, I'm sorry, I think I missed in the front end. All right, Andre, Jacque, same thing, yes or no, and you can fill in from there.
Yes. And I think when we have deportation, it leads to self-deportation because people know that the rules of our country are going to be followed. We need to build the wall because that's obviously something that Congress failed at in making sure it occurred in an expeditious fashion when we had full control of government. Yes, Remain in Mexico, absolutely, and giving tools for law enforcement. But the reality is we can't just rely on Trump as a backstop through executive orders. The reality is that we need to put in place statutory restrictions that are going to make sure that we have a thorough vetting and are going to give tools to law enforcement to remove criminal illegals in an expedited fashion. That's something that I fought for at the state level. And yes, there are things, whether that is English is the official language or ending sanctuary cities at the state level, that unfortunately sometimes even those in the establishment are unwilling, as you said in the question, to bring forward because it would offend
That's
the
time.
left.
Thank you. Roger Roth.
Yes, and I was just at the southern border having briefings from high-level former Trump administration officials in ICE and in Homeland Security. And I can tell you that what is happening down there is far worse than anything that you will see on TV or read in a newspaper. And they need our help. The law enforcement, these border agents, they're crying out for help right now, and they're getting nothing but crickets from the Biden administration. We've got to finish the wall. I saw the wall. It was crazy. You can see where Trump built his wall, and then you can see what they call the Biden wall because it's just a couple of strands of barbed wire. You won't believe this, but Trump installed fiber optic biosensors on our side of the border. When Biden took over, he flipped the switch and shut it off. They're doing everything in their power to make sure that people can cross illegally. And what starts there ends up here. There were just 5 Venezuelans who crossed the border within the last 30 days or 60 days, and they were caught robbing a financial institution here in the Kaukauna area. So we've got to get tough on the border. I will do that as your congressman.
All right, the next question is going to be 30 seconds because we're approaching the first break, and I want to be able to get this in quickly. Also, a yes or no question that you can then fill in the ensuing 29 seconds. Would you support legislation that would level large fines against private companies who knowingly employ illegal immigrants as a means of dissuading the practice? For example, $10,000 per day per illegal immigrant employed. Yes or no, Tony Wied?
Yes, I would. We have to deter folks from coming across the border illegally into our country. That's why we need to have a legal immigration policy that actually works. And I will work hard in Congress to make sure that we have a policy that allows folks to come in legally and follow the rules, whether that's to come into work or to become a citizen. But we cannot allow people, and we cannot allow companies to hire people that they know are illegal.
Quick follow-up, if you were elected, would you author that legislation to put those fines in place?
Yes, I would.
All right. Andre Jacque, 30 seconds.
On? There we go. Yes, absolutely. I think that we need to have tools for enforcement. We cannot disadvantage those who have come to this country legally. We cannot disadvantage companies that are following the law and making good faith efforts to do so. So absolutely the answer is yes.
And would you authorize, if you were elected, would you author that legislation?
Author or co-author. My name doesn't need to be at the top of every piece of legislation as long as it gets done, and I certainly would help to move that forward.
All right, that's time. We are up again. Roger Roth did not get to respond. We will get your response on the other side of the break as we're approaching it now. From a timing point of view, you wouldn't get the full 30 seconds, and I don't want to cut you short. So you have been listening to the first half hour of tonight's Wisconsin 8 Great Debate featuring Andre Jacque, Roger Roth, Tony Wied, all vying for the Republican nomination. The vote will be on August 13th. You've heard from them on these topics. When we get back, we will continue the discussion on the border and immigration and others as well. All right, you are clear for 4 minutes, because we'll be back in 5. Please take your seats. We're almost back. 10 seconds. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Joe Gigante, your regular Joe, broadcasting from Providence Academy with the Wisconsin 8 Great Debate. As you can hear, we have a great live audience here. We have all three of the Republican candidates seeking the nomination to lead the 8th Congressional District after the untimely desertion of that position by Mike Gallagher. And they are answering the questions. Now, just before the break, we'd asked a 30-second question. Roger Roth was not able to get his answer because of the timing of the break, so we'll begin there. Do you need the question again, or are you good to go, Roger?
For the sake of your listeners, Joe,
Sure.
why don't you run through that one more time?
Absolutely. So we were in we were this one here. Sorry, I just realized. It's the third or the second? I actually have to go second. That's right. Okay. Would you support legislation that would level large fines against private companies who knowingly employ illegal immigrants as a means of dissuading the practice? For example, $10,000 per day per illegal immigrant employed.
The answer is yes, I would. I think that's an important step when we look at solving the immigration issue. It's bigger than just building a wall. The follow-up question you want to ask about authoring the bill, you know, I've got a lot of big ideas, which we're going to talk about hopefully tonight. One, I want to be able to author a civil service reform bill. I was the one that authored it at the state legislature, first in a generation. Scott Walker signed it. I also think it's important that we do a REINS Act at the federal level. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later. So my initial answer is I'm hoping that if no one else does it,
That's
I will.
time.
Thank
All
you.
right, but thank you. All right, so another, same thing, we'll do this in a 30-second minute. I tell you, just looking at the two, well, we'll do this as a 30-second follow-up question. Same topic, border and immigration. We will go in the same order that we began with. So we'll begin with Tony Wied. Should nonprofits who promote and or facilitate admitting illegal immigrants in the United States be punished by the law and subject to losing their nonprofit status with the United States government? Tony.
So, Joe, your question is if nonprofits knowingly bring illegal immigrants across the border?
Promote and facilitate it, yes.
So they're bringing them across the border is the
Correct.
question. So, I mean, that's against the law. I mean, it's against the law to come across the border. And so, I mean, we need to have, there
We
can't
need,
be.
we need a yes or no to start with.
So,
It's a
but
yes
your
or no.
question is, are they knowingly bringing
No, the
illegal
question
immigrants
is,
across?
should they be subject to punishment by law and to losing their nonprofit status?
I mean, if this is something where we have a nonprofit.
We got to start with yes or no on this one.
Well, yes, if they're bringing people across the border and committing an illegal act of bringing illegal immigrants across, then yes, they need to be held accountable to that. I mean, we can't have people promoting that happening in our country right now. The border is the number one concern. As I go around the 11 counties in this district that people have right now, we need to close the border. So anybody that is knowingly bringing people across the border needs to be held accountable.
All right. Thank you, sir. Andre Jacque, same question. Do you need it repeated or are you good to go?
I got it.
All right.
The answer is yes. I can give you an example. Voces de la Frontera, which obviously was very much against my English as the official language legislation, but they have knowingly facilitated individuals getting voting ID cards. And in fact, during the Doyle administration, driver's licenses before we had real ID. So, I mean, obviously that's one of the major vulnerabilities that we have. I just saw it in the town hall the other day.
That is time, sir. Thank you. Roger, your turn on this one as well. Do you need the question or are you good?
No, my answer is yes. And this is a real issue. We have the federal government, the Biden-Harris administration, is actually giving your tax dollars to nonprofit organizations who are doing just that. So one of the larger answers in what we can do to shrink the size of the federal government and solve this deficit, it's stopping spending this ridiculous money, which is helping these organizations flaunt and violate United States law.
All right, thank you, sir. Staying with the 30 seconds, because we've got a lot to get through. Final question under the border and immigration. And for the sake of it, I'm going to do it a little bit. I'm going to stay with you, Roger, since you just gave the last answer, and then we'll kind of move back around. What would your top 3 actions be to secure our northern and our southern border if elected the next representative to this district?
Well, I got to tell you, my priority is the southern border. We've got to finish Trump's wall. As I mentioned before, we must turn on the biometric sensors that Joe Biden turned off. Thirdly, we've got to reinstitute the policies of the Trump administration, but not by executive order. We've got to pass them into into federal statute, so that the next president can't come and undo those right away. And then fourth, we've got to get the Border Patrol agents out of their offices right now, which they're stuck in because of asylum, and on the border protecting it.
Tony Wied, same thing, top 3 actions as the next representative.
Well, President Biden has been a complete disaster. And as the Trump-endorsed conservative in this race, I support President Trump in his mission. One, we need to build the border wall, first and foremost. That has to happen. And ultimately, we need to get the Remain in Mexico policy back into place. In addition, we need to fund the border security in a way and lead them so they have the tools that are necessary to make sure that those borders are completely sealed.
All right, thank you very much. Now, I want to move on to the topic of
Andre?
Oh, I'm sorry. I went out of order and I messed myself up.
I'm over
sorry.
here, Joe.
That's why I've got Charlie here. Yes, Andre Jacque, 30 seconds. My apologies.
Yeah, certainly, again, build the wall, reestablish Remain in Mexico, obviously put things in statute, give law enforcement the tools, but deportation, as we mentioned, we are a country of laws. It is vitally important that we detect those from whatever country they come from, because we know it's not just Mexico, but terrorists from the watch list that have gotten into our country, and we need to find and remove them expeditiously.
All right, thank you, Andre Jacque, who I did not accidentally forget to get that question to. All right, we're moving on to the topic of conservatism and conservative philosophy. I'm going to combine this first question. We're back to 1-minute answers on this section. We will begin. I'm going to go back to the original order because that way I won't mess up like I did a minute ago. So Tony Wied, you'll be first on this one. How do you define what it means to be a conservative, and if it's different to you, a MAGA conservative?
Well, I am the Trump-endorsed conservative in this race, and I will always put America first. And, you know, to be a conservative is to be a fiscal conservative. And career politicians right now have the power of the purse, and they are spending money that we do not have. My background is in business. I ran a small family business. And to do that, you have to actually dig in every single day. You have to have grit, determination, and hard work. And I would go through my budgets line by line every single day to make sure that we're finding efficiencies, and if there's any wasteful spending, we fix it immediately. And that's why I am a proponent at the congressional level that we have single subject spending bills in our Congress. We have to actually vote on single subject bills and go through each individual one. That's the only way to be a fiscal conservative, and that's what true conservatism is.
All right, pause there because we have time left here. I just want to ask a follow-up to what you said. Can you rack it to 30 seconds so we can give them the full 30? You said single subject funding bills. Tell us tell me what that vision is when you say that.
So right now we have bills, and you may have heard of the omnibus bill. It's an 1,100-page bill that people aren't reading. The people in the House aren't actually reading. They can't. They don't have time. They have one day to read it. And then we have continuing resolutions. This is what career politicians are doing. They're making things more difficult than they need to be. That's why me, as a business person, I want to have a single subject spending bill, and I will propose that, and that is the only way we're going to get to a balanced budget.
But specifically the question is, what is a single subject funding bill? Explain it for those here, what that means to you.
So basically, we would then, our job in the House of Representatives, along with overseeing agencies, is to present spending bills. And when we present a spending bill, it should only have one item on it. And then that item is voted on. And then we present another bill, and then we actually vote on each individual bill separately.
All right, thank you. So the proper order would be Andre Jacque next. Same initial question to you, 1 minute. How do you define conservatism, and or if it's different to you, what it means to be a MAGA conservative?
Yeah, I mean, I think being conservative is standing up for our values. And I'm proud to be both a fiscal and a cultural conservative. Now, I mean, I know Tony has told the president of the Fox Valley Initiative that I'm too pro-life. I know that this is something that I have suffered the slings and arrows of losing staff and committee chairmanships under Robin Voss for saving taxpayers money through government contracting reform. I am basically somebody that's been willing to shut down government to make sure that we actually look in depth line by line, zero-based budgeting to make sure that we actually reduce spending. I've proposed those cuts to my colleagues on the Finance Committee. I wish that at some point we can get those done. Unfortunately, there's no interest. But, I think that it really is critical that we have people that, aren't just going to have an R after their name in conservative districts, but actually vote the way that they've always promised people.
That's time. Hold on one second, Roger. He used the name of another candidate. Per the rules, Tony, you have the opportunity, if you'd like it, for a 30-second rebuttal, since he mentioned you specifically in his response.
What was the,
He said
regarding
that
pro-life?
you had accused him of being too pro-life to to the leader.
Fox Valley Initiative president.
The Fox Valley Initiative president.
well, I am pro-life. I have four
No,
children.
that he said, that you said that Andre is too pro-life.
How do you, either you're pro-life or you aren't pro-life.
No, okay, his claim, and this is why you get the rebuttal, is that you told the president of the Fox Valley Initiative that Andre is too pro-life. So is that, I guess the better way to say it, is that accurate, and what does that mean? He's claiming, the Fox Valley Initiative president is claiming you said those words.
I've been, in this political arena here for a pretty short time, having been in business my entire life. So I'm getting used to the career politician lies and smears. I am pro-life, and I have 4 children, and it's the greatest joy of my life.
So you're claiming you never said that.
No, I didn't say that.
You didn't say that to Ed Perkins.
That you're too pro-life? What does that mean, too pro-life?
That's our question.
Tell me what-
Well, he explained it to me, but
That's actually our question. No, hang on.
Either you are or you aren't on.
I just want to, Ed's not here tonight, right? Is he? He's not here. Ed Perkins, the president of the claim is, just to be clear,
at the Republican
That-
State Convention.
the Republican
State
State Convention, Ed Perkins is claiming, not Andre, Ed Perkins is claiming that you told him that Andre Jacque is too pro-life. And I just want to be clear, you're saying you never said that to Ed Perkins.
I think you're either pro-life or you aren't. So
My
I don't know
question
where
is-
he's coming from.
Tony, the
So no,
question
I
is-
didn't say he's too pro-life. I'm pro-life. Andre, clearly you are pro-life, which is why you should stay in the state. That's where that's where pro-life is better dealt with. It's a state right issue.
All right, so what I will do, because I just want to make sure, I just need a yes or no on this for the sake of follow-up. You're saying that you never said that to Ed Perkins.
But again, I didn't say that. What does
Okay,
that even
that's
mean,
all.
too pro-life?
I just
That's a
need
lie
the
and a
answer.
smear.
No, you never said it. Ed Perkins, I assume you're claiming, because we can't confirm it, that Ed Perkins did say that to you. Okay, well, I can clarify.
He said it to me and others. Yeah.
I can clarify that with Ed, and we can't settle it here, but I wanted to give you the chance to rebuttal. You said you did not say it. Ed says you did. We will clarify that outside of tonight with it. Now, with that being said, I want to give Roger the chance to be able to answer the initial question of what does it mean to be a conservative or MAGA, if you see those as different, a MAGA conservative.
Yeah, thank
1
you.
minute.
Yeah, thank you. I think by calling ourselves conservative, we are acknowledging to our nation that we actually believe there's something here worth fighting for and conserving. And I think that's the big contrast between us and the liberal progressives. We actually believe in this country. We don't think that it's perfect, but we believe in this country. It is something worth fighting for. We believe in self-determination. We believe in the entrepreneurial spirit. We believe that in America, you can pull yourselves up from the bootstraps. Anybody, you saw the speech from J.D. Vance at the convention hall on Wednesday night. Anyone can come from abject poverty in the foothills of the Appalachia, and you can be a vice presidential candidate here in the United States. That's what conservatism means. Take it one step forward with Ronald Reagan, it means that you have peace through strength. It means that we don't kowtow to dictators and two-bit thugs around the world. We project American dominance. That's what being a conservative...
That's time, sir. All right, thank you. Now, under the same topic, and as a witness can see, we wrote these before we picked order. So the order of these questions will be Roth, Wied, Jacque, and that's just, again, when we created this, we didn't have the order for tonight. These are candidate-specific questions under the rubric, under the header of conservatism and conservative philosophy. So starting with you, Roger Roth. Some have questioned if your announcement to run was somehow coordinated with Mike Gallagher, the outgoing congressman, or his people, given that you announced within hours of Gallagher saying he wouldn't seek re-election. Further, it is reported that his former campaign manager is one of your top consultants, that several of his staffers are working events for you, getting signatures for you, and that even most of your top fundraisers come from Gallagher's inner circle. How do you explain that to voters that are concerned that that is the case?
Well, I can assure you that I had no connection with Mike Gallagher, and I was shocked when he made his announcement. But it didn't take my wife and I very long to look at the facts and to recognize how broken Washington was, and to recognize that the answer to Washington is a 25-year home builder with 20 years in the military, 4 deployments in the Middle East, serving with Scott Walker here in the state legislature with his endorsement, knowing that I'm the principal conservative to go out to Washington and move this country in the right direction. I've got a military background. They teach us we run to the sound of the guns. Washington is broken, and I knew in a hot second that I needed to get in this race and advocate for conservatism, to get out to D.C., work with President Trump, and move this country in the right direction. And if you...
No, you got time. Go ahead.
Okay. And as far as the further comments you have made, I got to know one of the people working on my race was the former campaign manager of the Tim Michaels race. Got to know him when I was the lieutenant.
All right, that's time, but I'm going to give, I just want to clarify, is there, in that litany, that is the former campaign manager for Gallagher, Pat McNulty, is one of your top consultants, that several Gallagher staffers are working for you or volunteering for you, whatever the right term would be, and that many of your top funders or fundraisers are in fact people that came from the Gallagher inner circle. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Well, the fundraising one I would say is not accurate, but there are former Gallagher staffers who are volunteering in my campaign, and Patrick McNulty, who I knew from the Tim Michaels race, is helping me on the campaign as well.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. All right, there's a minute setup for you, Tony Wied. 2 recent articles have claimed that you have not voted in several non-presidential elections, meaning not the presidential, but those that take place outside of that, in the past several years, one saying that you essentially only vote 30% of the time, while others have challenged your outsider status as being a polite way of saying that you lack the experience necessary to meet the challenge of the Washington swamp. How do you assuage voter concerns on both of those issues?
Well, look, I've been in business my entire life. I've been running a small business that was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, along with raising 4 children. So I was extremely busy and focused on my children, my number one job in the world, and being a good husband and a good father, and also running my business that was very consuming and a very difficult business for 30 years. So like majority of people, I didn't vote in every single election. I did vote in 2016 for President Trump. I did vote for President Trump, of course, in 2020. And I am an example of somebody that, look, I have been disenchanted, but I think we all need to stand up now more than ever, right now. Get off the couch and get to the ballot box, because we need to save America.
All right, thank you, sir. Now, we got 15 seconds left. Pause. Just for that the second part, do you want to address the concern of the lack of necessary experience to handle the Washington swamp in the last 15 seconds? Your choice. You have
Well, anybody
time
that's run a business as the sole owner, as somebody that has the buck stops here for that many years successfully, has grit, determination, and hard work, and I would hire them any single day of the week. I have what it takes, I have the toughness, and I will absolutely attack the swamp.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wied. Andre Jacque, the question for you. You have been painted as a career politician, a swampy insider during this race that has spent your entire elected career clogging the legislative pipeline in Madison with, quote, too many bills, end quote. Further, some state that your lack of private sector experience would be a handicap in Congress setting policies in decision-making, and even as recently as today, there was an article where you were quoted, or excuse me, not quoted, there's a quote from the campaign manager for the Wied campaign saying, no political trick is too dirty for Andre Jacque and his team of never-Trumpers, so being accused of being a never-Trumper as well. These are a lot of concerns. How do you reassure voters who have raised these concerns that this is not the case?
Calling me a never-Trumper is the most ridiculous thing that I've heard in my time in politics. I would love for Tony Wied to address that and own that statement, if he's even aware that his campaign team made it. Look, it was addressed earlier about career politicians looking good, dressing good. I don't have the biggest wallet up here. I've never had a silver spoon in my mouth. Very proud of my parents for giving me an ethic of hard work. I've worked in the private sector. I've flipped burgers, worked cashiers, worked cash registers, paid my own way through college. It's extremely offensive, and to hear from one of my colleagues, or my competitors in particular, to continue to, follow their timelines. I would have had to have been elected when I was 13. Just ridiculous. I have the scars to prove that I have not been in bed with either the establishment or the special interests. They've come after me every chance they can.
All right, that's time. Obviously, he brought you back up, Tony. The quote is from Aiden Strong Green. They identify as campaign manager. No political trick is too dirty for Andre Jacque and his team of never Trumpers. Is that your belief of your competitor here in the race?
Well, Andre Jacque, in 2016, you worked for Ted Cruz. You actively worked against President Trump in the election in 2016. In addition, you worked with you and your cronies to file a frivolous complaint against me for doing something illegal for signing signatures, which was dismissed within 1 second with the Wisconsin Election Commission. In addition, he goes on TV and says, Tony Wied didn't even vote for President Trump. Is any of that true?
All right, well, we'll give him a chance to respond. Just quickly, though, so you stand by your campaign manager claiming he's a never Trumper?
Andre Jacque is actively working against the Trump-endorsed candidate. He has worked against President Trump. He does not have the loyalty. There's a reason
I'm looking
that President
for a yes
Trump
or no.
picked me.
Do you think he's a never Trumper?
Absolutely.
Okay. You get 30 seconds to respond, including, well, you heard what he said. I'm not going to repeat it all. There's time. We got to get to the time here.
So because I don't support Tony Wied, I'm a never Trumper, according to Tony Wied. In the 2020 presidential primary, it's record, you didn't vote. And in that election, that's when we lost our conservative state Supreme Court majority. On top of that, you've learned the art of political lying pretty well, Tony. Ted Cruz in 2016, when he won the 8th district, J.D. Vance also supported, not Donald Trump in 2016. Do you believe that J.D. Vance should be vice presidential candidate right now?
That is time, sir, please. Okay, we're going to move on because we're up against near break, and I want to get Roger in this time. Before the break, 1 minute to you, sir. Wait, no, I'm sorry, we went out of order that
New
time.
question.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. You guys are confusing me up there. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Do we have time to do it? Yeah, all right. I'm just looking against the clock. It's 59:50? Yeah, we can do this. We won't get all three in. This is a question from listener Eric P. I don't know if we can use his last name. So his question, what assurances do we have that we're not sending another Mike Gallagher to Washington, D.C.? I'm going to start with you, Roger, because you got cut short the last time.
Yeah, well, look at the last two congressmen we sent out to Washington from this district. They were both political neophytes. With me, you've got someone who's got 25-year home building experience, 20 years in the military, and served with Governor Walker in the state legislature, passing conservative reform after conservative reform that moved Wisconsin in the right direction. And Governor Walker's endorsing me because he knows that I'm the guy that can take those proposals out to Washington, D.C., work with President Trump, and institute those at the federal level. So I think the assurance here is that I'm a completely different breed. I'm actually someone with experience that can go to D.C. on day one and work with Trump and the Republicans in Congress to move our nation in the right direction.
Now, in terms, because I'm going to do a quick follow-up because of time, we'll have to get Tony and Andre's responses. But if I can just ask a quick follow-up to you, Roger, I hear what you're saying, but if you could say your top assurance, the thing you think that makes it clear you're not another Mike Gallagher, what would that be?
I've been the man that stood in the arena. You've heard that speech from Theodore Roosevelt of the men that stand in the arena, they get bloodied, they get marred, they fight the battle. That's me. If you look at my conservative record in Madison, that is my record. And that is the difference. And that's how you know. Look at the past performance. We'll predict future results.
We got a break. We're coming up to the break right now. You are listening to the Wisconsin 8 great debate. We'll be back in just a few minutes, continuing with the questions for all of the candidates. And you are clear until 5 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen. Please try to be back in your seats by 4 or 5 minutes after the hour for the guests. Candidates, be at your podiums by 7:05. We have 1 minute. Please make your way back to your seats. Candidates to the podium, please. 1 minute. Listening on AM 1360, 97.5 WTAQ, as well as our great audience here tonight who've been very well behaved. Give yourselves a round of applause. So believe it or not, we're halfway through this debate. I know at times there are people that said, do you really want to do a 2-hour debate? Well, the short answer is, I don't think we'll get through everything that we plan to, because there's a lot of important issues that we did. Now, a moment ago, we started a question but couldn't, we got the first answer. Now I want to go back. So we have Roger start because of the nature of it. So for this one, I'm going to go to Tony Wied next on the question. For those just tuning in and just joining us on the video live stream, question from who's actually here, by the way. I hope he doesn't mind singing. But I just learned that Eric, who submitted it, is right up here in the front row. What assurances do we have that we're not sending another Mike Gallagher to Washington, D.C. if they nominate you?
Well, I think the fact that I'm endorsed by President Donald J. Trump speaks to this issue very well. He vetted each and every candidate in this race and chose me for a reason. Look, I have business experience. I have successful business experience for almost 30 years. That is something that you can't do if you're weak and afraid. That is something that requires a lot of grit, determination, hard work, and I had something that I call never quit. And I will never quit in anything I do. I have never quit, and I will absolutely not quit in this job. I'm going from customer service my whole life, and I'm moving into public service. It's the exact same principles. And I assure you that my character and my background, and President Trump saw this, knows that I will never quit on our constituents.
All right, you have 10 seconds left. Just a quick question. Is that a promise that you would never leave midway through an elected round?
Yeah, and I'll go a little further. I will absolutely never quit mid-round. And when I'm done serving, and when you no longer want me to serve, and when it's over, my job is to come back home and not be a lobbyist, not get on some board and do that.
Thank you. Jacque, you have 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, so obviously Mike Gallagher's team is not supporting me. The special interests are running ads against me. Roger's been the establishment. Tony's looking to join it. One of the, I'm ready to fight it. And one of the issues that we have in D.C. are folks that are trading individual stocks for personal enrichment, like Nancy Pelosi. So I think I'm the anti-establishment candidate who is used to, frankly, being beat up on by the establishment and the special interests. I mean, I was attacked by Tony in that statement read earlier because I received contributions from Janelle Branchin, Ty Bodden, Chuck Wickers, Elijah Benke, Scott Allen, people that we've supported each other for years. They're the ones that put forward the resolution to impeach Megan Wolf. But again, I'm the never Trumper, so thank you.
All right, it's time. You get a 30-second, he mentioned you by name again, so if you wish, you want a 30-second rebuttal, or do you want to just let it sit?
No.
All right. We're going to move on to the next topic, election integrity. We'll reset things. We start with Tony, then to Andre, then to Roger. So first, Tony Wied. As recently as last night's keynote address to the 2024 RNC convention in Milwaukee, former President Donald Trump has stated that he believes the 2020 election was rigged and or stolen. Last night he said stolen, other times he's used the term rigged, depending on which speech he gives. Do you believe the 2020 election was stolen? This is a answer that must begin with a simple yes or no, and then you have a full minute to explain your answer. So the question to you, do you believe the 2020 election was stolen?
Well, Joe, look, there is election
Yes or no?
irregularities.
It has to be a yes or no, and then you can go on.
Joe, I'm not a political, I'm not in the business of
Tony,
politics. I'm an
we went through the
outsider,
rules.
and I don't
Please
have
stop,
the actual.
turn his mic off. I will give you one more chance. You must begin with yes or no, or we move to the next candidate. Are you willing to answer yes or no and then give your explanation?
Look, my personal opinion is that I believe
All
something.
right, cut
was
his mic,
wrong.
please. I'm sorry, he refused. The rules were very clear. If you don't answer with yes or no, then we move on. Andre, you are next. Do I need to repeat the question, or do you know the question?
Just for the sake of your audience, why don't you repeat it?
Again, as recently as last night, Donald Trump has said that he believed the 2020 election was stolen or rigged, depending on what part of the speech. Do you believe the 2020 election was stolen? You must begin with yes or no and then move on to your answer.
Can I start with hell yes?
Hell
yes.
All right, then we'll go with that.
So I have fought against Zuckerbucks at a time that, one of those individual stocks that Tony is investing in is Meta and Facebook. I have engaged in litigation to stop what we're seeing going on with uneven, basically I've been involved in election integrity lawsuits, trying to stop the ballot curing, trying to deal with indefinite confinement. Everything that goes back to the concerns we raised in the letter to Mike Pence, which I was the only state senator to sign.
All right. Real quick, because we have 10 seconds left, right? You mentioned ballot curing. For those that are not familiar with the term, in 10 seconds, can you explain to us what that is?
Sure, that's the ability of clerks to fill in things on an absentee ballot that are either incorrect or missing, and basically complete ballots that otherwise could not be counted.
All right, thank you, sir. I believe he mentioned you again. Mr. Wied, do you want to respond? Specifically, it had to do with your investments.
So he's talking about the investment that I have. I have like an IRA
Investment
account.
into Facebook. I'm sorry, it was.
Well, I'll tell you right now,
His
I'm a small
financial
business
disclosure
owner,
just came out.
and I ran convenience stores, gas stations, a small family business. I have no idea the right stocks to pick. I work with an investment advisor just like everybody in this room, and they instruct me on things to buy, and they buy good businesses. And so, yeah, I do have holdings.
Okay, thank you, sir. Roger, you get to answer the question. Must begin with yes or no. Do you believe the 2020 election was stolen?
No, but that doesn't mean that I don't have serious problems with how our elections were conducted or be upset with the outcome. I mean, even Ron Johnson has acknowledged that Republican congressional candidates in our state received more votes than President Trump in 2020. But moving forward, after that election, I fought for election integrity to make sure that in 2024 there would be faith and trust in our system, which is why I co-authored the constitutional amendment which bans Zuckerbucks here in the state of Wisconsin, which you all voted for. I also authored the constitutional amendment to make it so only U.S. citizens can vote in our elections. That will be on the ballot this November, and you will have an opportunity to vote for that. I will be voting for that, and I will encourage you to do that as well.
All right, thank you, sir. The next question, actually, there was a reference to it in one of the last responses. In the 2020 certification effort, a letter which, just for all listening, watching, and here, copies of the letter was supplied to all of the candidates prior to tonight's debate when we had our pre-meeting. A letter was sent to Vice President Pence from Wisconsin lawmakers asking him to hold the certification of Wisconsin's votes until claims of impropriety could be looked into and properly addressed. I have specific questions for each of the candidates, and again, these must be answered with, well, in one case, there's a yes or no. So for Tony Wied, you were not in office, so we recognize that you had no opportunity. Had you been somebody in office at the time, in State Senate or State Assembly, would you have signed the letter, yes or no?
So the
And
letter,
why?
so the letter is saying to delay the certification to have
Correct.
further investigation. Yes, I think that's appropriate to delay it and actually have further investigation in something that was a very difficult time, and there was a lot of people that were upset about it, and people didn't know exactly what was going on with the election integrity. And we've had election integrity issues for a long time, so I think it would be appropriate.
All right, thank you. And actually, third on these. We're well within time. For Roger Roth, you were a member of the State Senate at the time. You did not sign the letter.
That's
Why?
correct. Because I believe that the Electoral Count Act doesn't give the vice president any power outside of counting the electoral votes that are sent to them by the states, that are certified by the states. And that's why I'm going to remain consistent. And when Donald Trump wins this election and Democrats try and turn the same arguments against Donald Trump that Republicans were using against Joe Biden, I will be consistent in saying Kamala Harris does not have the authority.
That is time, but I have a follow-up. So you brought up the legislation guiding what the vice president can do. The states ultimately have the power in elections. Do you believe there is any role in the state legislature of Wisconsin as regarded the 2020 count, where we had the Gableman report that came out, all these things? Do you believe that the state legislature had any power to intercede to stop that vote count from going to Washington with so many claims of impropriety? You get 30 seconds to respond.
No, because the way our state statutes are written, when the election is certified, when the election is certified, those ballots cast by whoever won, in this case it was the slate of Joe Biden, those are the ones that get sent to Washington to be counted.
All right, thank you, sir. Andre Jacque, you did sign the letter. You mentioned you were the only state senator to sign it. I think it was about a dozen or so members of the assembly that also signed it. Why were you willing to sign it? And I will dovetail it to Roger's statement that there was no real power to do the things the letter was claiming or asking for.
There clearly have to be consequences when fraud occurs. And clearly, I was part of actually collecting the open records request from the city of Green Bay. When we immediately found out, they gave Michael Spitzer Rubenstein the literal keys to the central ballot count operation. Obviously, there were concerns about drop boxes. There were concerns about any number of things that the Supreme Court, unfortunately, did not step in. But if the branch and subpoenas, which I helped her with, had actually been able to take effect under Robin Voss, sorry,
I didn't see that. All right, this next one will be a 1-minute question for each of you, starting again with Tony Wied. Trust in our elections is at an all-time low in government in general. What actions do you believe, as a member of the United States Congress, as a representative, can you take to restore trust in the government operations overall, but more specifically regarding the accuracy, fairness, and legality of our elections?
Well, election integrity is something that I hear across all 11 counties as I go around and meet with people. People are very concerned with election integrity, to the point where some are saying, I'm not going to vote anymore. You know, I don't trust it. I'm not interested in it anymore. And that's where we have these difficult conversations. You know, this is something that right now in our country, we have a major issue from a mail-in ballot perspective. You look at states like California, they're sending out 38 million or so ballots. You know, we are not going to have true election integrity unless we have same-day paper ballots. That's the only way that we can actually have a system that works. So meanwhile, we have to continue to do things from a congressional standpoint, from a federal election standpoint. We need to do things like, hey, you need to be a citizen to vote. You know, when we first started voting, you had to actually own property. But I think that's very important, that you have to be a citizen and show your ID.
All right, thank you, sir. Andre Jacque, you are next. Do you need the question, or are you good to go?
I think I'm good. So I think the most important thing as a member of the congressional delegation is to show leadership by calling for Megan Wolf to be removed. I think any time that you have somebody who is in a position to call balls and strikes for clerks across the state of Wisconsin that has repeatedly proven that she will give the wrong instruction and they're only beholden to the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and Robin Voss, that's a huge problem. Obviously, military ballots is another subset of mail-in ballots that we have to be very concerned about. We saw what happened in the city of Milwaukee and how they exposed what they did with Janelle Brandtjen in fraudulently issuing ballots. But we have to look at the HAVA standards and basically all these areas in which we basically have the federal government continue to have strings attached to push states to do things in their administration of elections they otherwise wouldn't.
All right, thank you, sir. Roger Roth.
Yeah, well, how are we going to get more trust? I believe the question, trust in our government, in our government officials. At the end of the day, we gotta have a system that's not rigged against us. That's really the power of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, is they're seeing right now how government is used against us, how our judicial system, our Justice Department is used against us, how the IRS is used against us. So if we're going to reinstate trust in this, we need principle-proven conservatives who are willing to go out there and reform those systems. I am willing to do just that. And then when it comes to our elections here, you heard President Trump say it last night. You heard many people say it this week. We've got to play by the rules that are presented to us right now. And we might not like them. We might not like the drop boxes and the early absentee voting, in the same-day voting and all that, but we've got to use it. Everyone in this room needs to go and vote today. Bring your friends and neighbors. Get that absentee ballot.
Sir.
Too big to rig.
All right, thank you, Roger Roth. Now, we've got time. I'm just looking at the back and forth. We're going to move to the next section. COVID and medical freedom. These questions are brought to us courtesy of our sponsor, Physicians for Freedom. Great organization. The first question, again, we'll start with you, Tony. Beyond spreading the word, encouraging debate, and asking questions in the wake of COVID and our ever-growing understanding of its lies and harm, what specifically would you do to restore trust between patients and their doctors, as well as between all of us and medical authorities, so that the distrust itself does not compound the suffering as we go forward?
Well, this is a question that is near and dear to my heart. You know, the COVID epidemic and the crisis that we went through, they absolutely infringed on our First Amendment right with the censorship that was taken throughout the social media platforms, through the media, and the like. People were not willing, or they were willing, but they weren't able to actually have conversations about the COVID and about the vaccine and those sorts of things. You know, medical interventions and anything you do medically, you have the right to talk to your doctor. And it's called informed consent. The doctor needs to inform you on the health risks and the health benefits. And then you have informed consent, and then you need to make that decision. So our government should not and will not, and I will make sure, cannot tell people how and what to do and what to do with their health. And we learned during that, and we cannot let something like that happen again. People should have the right, the authority to make their own decisions in their health care.
All right, thank you, Tony Wied. Andre Jacque.
Yeah, during COVID, we had one of the greatest violations I could possibly imagine of so many of our constitutional rights, whether that was religious belief, whether that was First Amendment, and certainly what we saw in terms of the heavy-handed mandates of government. I can tell you I'm very proud to have received the inaugural award as the Senate author of the most comprehensive medical freedom legislation to ensure that there would be no discrimination on the basis of vaccination status, period. This was at a time when, Tony was putting masks on his dinosaurs outside the gas stations. The reality is that we saw something that we can never see again for the next pandemic or whatever they use as the excuse to, again, take away our constitutional rights. And I can't stand more strongly for medical freedom.
All right, it's time. We'll get to you in a moment. We have an opportunity for rebuttal. I have a follow-up question on that if you don't mind, I'm just going to incorporate it into it, because for the sake of our time here, we're going to do, it's 30 seconds for rebuttal, 30 seconds to answer the question I'm adding to it. You heard what he asked or said about the dinosaurs. My question to you specifically, as a business owner during COVID, did you require your employees to wear masks or to receive the jab to continue working at your company? And what were your general requirements to your to everybody, I mean, customer service business during COVID? You can start with your rebuttal, and then after that 30, answer my question.
So I get to answer the career politician with his attack on me with running my business. He has no idea what it takes to run a business. We were under a mandate from the state of Wisconsin that we had to wear masks. And our customers were wanting us to wear masks for a limited period of time. So we did do that for a limited period. I would never make anybody take a vaccine. I didn't take the vaccine, nor did my family. And I would never make them do that. But for a limited time, we did have to follow it, and our customers also wanted us to do that. So it was several weeks.
You can reset. So you kind of incorporated them together, and I said I'd give you a total of a minute. So you did have a mask mandate within the company at one point, but never a vaccine mandate. And would you deny service to customers that came in that did not wear a mask?
Oh, absolutely not. If a customer came in without a mask, we would never deny them service. We would never make anybody take a vaccine. We did do a mask. We asked people. I didn't force it. If they didn't want to wear a mask, they might have had asthma or maybe a medical related thing that their doctor said they didn't, that they couldn't wear a mask, and that was totally fine. Our employees, some did not wear a mask. But we did follow Governor Evers for a very, very short period of time, along with the city of Green Bay mandated it too. But it was very short.
Quick question. You say a short time, how?
It was weeks.
Weeks. Okay, just for clarification. All right, Roger, you get a full minute to answer. Do you need the initial question?
No, I think I got it.
All right.
I think I got it. So I think this question dovetails nicely in the one you just asked about restoring trust in our government and their officials. The truth is, when it came to COVID, our government lied to us. Fauci lied to us. He lied to us about gain-of-function research. They lied to us about where this virus originated, and they intentionally suppressed information coming from reputable doctors and those in the medical community about the safety of vaccines. And I think it's important on the front end. Now, we also know that the Biden administration had been coercing social media companies to suppress that information. The one decision that I disagree with from the Supreme Court's docket here this last term dealt with that issue, and that's why it's imperative, someone who's going to Congress, we are going to, and I mentioned before, upending the civil service reform, we're going to make it so that if you have federal employees that are working to infringe upon your First Amendment rights, that is cause for termination.
All right. Now, I'm going to do a follow-up with the two current and former state senator in the time we have before the break that dovetails to the follow-up I gave Tony about his policies in business. Roger, 30 seconds. As a state senator that was in office when these lockdowns were going on, what did you personally do to try to end the lockdowns, to try to end the mask mandates in the state?
Absolutely. Every time Tony Evers issued one of his illegal orders, I was the guy that hired the attorneys that sued him in court, and we won every time.
Anything to add to that? All right, fine. I just want to give you your full time. Andre, 30 seconds, same question to you as a state senator during that time.
Sure. Joe, I was on your show calling for the Assembly to allow the Senate to come back in session because we were perfectly ready to end Evers' edicts and rescind those executive orders, or they rescind that declaration. And we know from the state Supreme Court that they were ready to do that as soon as we would have acted. I also, if you look at, I'm very proud to have the endorsement of former Sheriff Adam Bieber. Obviously, Evers vetoed my legislation on COVID, and I've also—
That's time, sir. Sorry, we got to stop you there. And that brings us to the last break. We are to the last 30 minutes of tonight's debate. We will try to do our best to get as many questions in. So we will be back in just a few minutes. We appreciate everyone tuning in on Fox 11 as well as WTAQ. We'll be back in just a few minutes after these messages. All right, 5 minutes is the break. Please be back in your seats in podiums in 4. We have less than a minute to, we're returning. Please take your seats. Candidates to your podiums, please. Yeah, I listened because there's words.
Yeah, exactly. 52 is when we're going to want to start the closing statements.
Okay, thank you for doing that because I wasn't even thinking. They're 2 minutes apiece, right?
2 minutes.
All right. Candidates to the podiums, please. Everyone take your seats. Don't make me send Charlie after you.
I'm a mean one.
It's an ad still running. Still an ad. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody. We appreciate you listening on AM 1360, 97.5 WTAQ, and of course the video live stream courtesy of fox11online.com. We thank all here in person at this beautiful, beautiful facility, Providence Academy. They're allowing us to host it here, and we appreciate that very much as well. Now, we have one more question that we have courtesy of our sponsor, Physicians for Freedom. This also under the Medical Freedom banner. In Northeast Wisconsin, the healthcare system provides gender-confused minors a path to confidential counseling and treatments, including, ultimately for some, chemical and surgical mutilation and sterilization in institutes such as Children's Hospital in Milwaukee. What would you do to oppose these irreversible, physically damaging treatments for psychological illness in Wisconsin? And we begin with you, Tony Wied.
Well, look, children, people under the age of 18, cannot get medical interventions like those types of surgeries and medical stuff without they can't be doing that to kids that are under 18. That's something that has to be something that is over the age of 18. And is the question in regards
it's
to?
Happened. The premise of the question is they're doing that now. They're working around the parents to do that. So the question is, as a member of Congress, what would you do to help stop that?
Well, I mean, that's absurd that doctors and medical providers are doing that to children. I think we need, that's something that you need to wait till you're an adult, until you're over the age of 18 and you can make a choice. And at that point, you have every right to do what you want to do after the age of 18. But what could I do from a federal perspective? We definitely need to do something in order to stop that from happening. And I don't know if that's legislation, if that's something we could do in Congress, but I will definitely look into that because I would definitely be against something like that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wied. Andre Jacque, you are next. 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, so I'm actually the Senate author of legislation that I put forward with Representative Scott Allen to prevent the mutilation of minors. Very proud of that, even though it was not allowed to pass through the entire process. And it's important that we cut funding for facilities that perform such procedures. So, in fact, as committee chair, I advanced legislation to stop men and women's sports. And that was, again, something that my legislative leadership warned me against doing. One of the committee members, Republicans on my committee, asked me not to do. I did anyways because I believe very strongly that we should not be mutilating children. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Roger Roth.
Yeah, I appreciate your sponsor bringing forward this question. It is a very important issue, and we're going to be judged. This generation is going to be judged by future generations for what we allow to happen. And this gender mutilation, it's sickening, and it's madness. And I think Congress needs to use the power of the purse to deny federal funds to institutions that are performing this. But even more, I think we have to look at expanding like a statute of limitations, if you will, for minors who have something like this done to them. When they become adults, we have to allow them to go back and sue the doctors who had done this thing to them. They're underage. They don't have the ability to make this kind of decision, and we need to allow them recourse later in life for this terrible thing that was done to them.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to move to a different section. Now, I'm just looking at the time, we're going to cut some of these to 30-second answers so we have plenty of time for closing statements. So the next section is First and Second Amendment. We're going to start with the Second Amendment. I believe it was Tony that said this earlier about quoting the Constitution, the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. My first part of that, it's a two-part question, is what do those words mean to you? And as a representative, elected representative, would you introduce legislation to repeal all gun control that exists, such as outlawing, well, bump stocks just get overturned, but legislation like that, or restrictions on who can own a gun, as is currently either being proposed or exists? 1 minute.
Well, the right to
30
bear
seconds,
arms.
30 seconds.
Well, the right to bear arms or the Second Amendment is something the government can't infringe upon, and I would not allow anyone in government to infringe upon that right. We have that basic right. It's the right to self-defense, and it's something that we have to continue to go back to the Constitution with these types of things. So I will always protect that Second Amendment and make sure that we are never infringing on the Second Amendment.
All right, quick, it was 5 seconds, but I'm going to give a 10-second follow-up. Would you support repealing things such as the ban on felons owning guns or physical abusers owning guns?
I would not support that. I think those are laws that are in place, but I think, again, we need to support and protect the Second Amendment and make sure that it is not infringed upon.
Okay, thank you, sir. Andre Jacque, 30 seconds, same question.
Yeah, I am proud to be the only candidate with an A rating from Gun Owners of America and the Wisconsin Firearms Coalition. I do believe that it's critical that we provide the right to self-defense. I have been a longtime co-author of constitutional carry, and I actually had legislation vetoed by Governor Evers to basically allow for people to conceal carry within school zones for the protection of themselves and their children. So I think that it's absolutely critical that we, now, you want me to answer the second question?
Say, yeah, go ahead, I'll give you the same 10 seconds.
I mean,
would you repeal laws that ban gun ownership to felons and to those that have abused, wife abusers, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always looking at the details of specific statutes, but the reality is that we need to enforce our existing laws on the books, and I'm not looking to make changes to those currently.
So was that a yes or no on the repeal of those?
That's a no.
Okay, fair enough. Roger, 30 seconds for the main question of what does "it shall not be infringed" mean to you? And again, you can just incorporate, if you will. Would you repeal existing laws that ban gun ownership at any level?
Yeah, so I absolutely support the Second Amendment. I own guns. I hunt. I'm in the military, trained to use firearms. I can field strip an M4 rifle. It's important, it's a Second Amendment, but there's a reason that we've got a First Amendment. There's a reason we've got a Constitution. There's a reason our nation has existed as it is, and it's because we trust our people. I would not support, just like the others, I would not support removing those restrictions. But I do think in the National Firearms Act, there are things like silencers and others that I would support removing.
Okay, and we purposely gave you a little extra so you could answer as well to everyone else. All right, coming back to Tony Wied, moving to the First Amendment. Social media, they have a current exception that prevents basically people suing over areas where their privacy has been violated. Obviously, the suppression we've seen. Would you support or write legislation that would open social media to prosecution when they've been shown to either be invading privacy and or suppressing people's First Amendment right to communicate?
Yes, I would. I think we, as our First Amendment, we have the ability, and we should have the ability to say what we want to say. And I think that is very important for our Constitution, and to live in a free society, we need to have the ability to communicate and express our views. And so if they're doing anything illegally or invading our privacy, we should have that ability as a government to say, hey, you can't do that. And we should take away that immunity.
All right, thank you, sir. Andre Jacque.
So yes, I would certainly support looking at those restrictions or penalties for bad actors. But I would again repeat, we were not talking about an IRA before. We're talking about individual stock ownership of Facebook and Meta that my competitor has currently invested in, according to his just released financial disclosure statement. I would hope that he would commit to divesting himself of that during the time that he's serving in Congress.
That is time,
he's not
sir.
conflicted.
He didn't use your name, so technically I cannot. The rule says a use of name. Roger, 30 seconds.
I absolutely would support protecting people's free speech when it comes in terms of social media companies. They have been found, I think, to have abused their powers. And we've got to be careful because private businesses, the First Amendment, while it exists for government-sanctioned speech, we do give private entities the ability to regulate certain kinds of speech on their premises. So we've got to be careful with it. But there has been no question that social media has tried to silence conservative views, and I will make sure that these public forums...
That's time. Thank you. All right, I've been overruled on the rule. He said it was... Look, he's a graduate of Hillsdale College. I don't question. We're going to give you a 30-second rebuttal because it was obvious it was you, even though the name wasn't used. So in that case, I will defer to Charlie on that 30-second rebuttal to what Andre said a moment ago.
Well, again, it's another dirty political trick by a career politician. Look, I use counsel. I have a financial advisor. They advise me on companies that do well, that will appreciate in value, and it's a company that I bought years ago, and it has actually appreciated.
Would you divest if you learned, or if you learn more about companies, whether it's Meta or others, that are contrary to the values that you believe in, would you divest?
Well, I'm not going to, listen to a career politician tell me what to do with my savings accounts. I don't think that politicians and people in Congress should have single stock trades. And I would absolutely propose a ban on trading stocks and not allowing folks that are in Congress to do that.
All right, time. Thank you, sir. All right, now we're going to move on to the economy and economics. As very straightforward, again, 30 seconds. As a next U.S. representative, what would you do, and please be as specific as possible, to combat the high inflation that we continue to struggle with here in the United States?
Well, everybody is struggling with inflation. We're hearing reports from the government that it's 20%. I think it's over 50% at the grocery store, almost 60% at the gas pump. Right now, it's a problem. We need to rein in spending right now. We are at a budget deficit this year of over $3 trillion. We have to get to a single subject spending bill within the Congress right away. And ultimately, we need to also extend the tax cuts that President Trump put into effect that work so well. And also, we need to be energy dominant in this country, and that will help with inflation.
That is
in the
time,
economy.
sir. Andre.
Yeah, we need to starve the beast, and the beast is government. Yeah, we do need single subject spending bills, but we also need to end crony capitalism, and we need to end the Fed.
All right, easy enough. Roger.
Yeah, we've got to stop the spending. The problem is we have too many dollars chasing too few goods right now, and it's driving up inflation. Specifically, we can start by clawing back the ARPA dollars that haven't been spent yet. We can claw back the Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest misnomer in titling of a bill, which absolutely drove up inflation. Instead of going and funding green pet projects for liberal Democrats, we could actually use those dollars to actually improve our roads and bridges, just like President Trump wants to do.
Thank you, sir. Now we're going to go 15 seconds on a couple quick questions because I think it's important to get them addressed, but we're coming up to closing statements. So 15 seconds, starting with you, Tony. This is, again, a yes or no question to start with, and then you can fill in on the other side of it. As we look at the efforts for a balanced budget and all the different things we hear about, would you be willing to let the government shut down if it would end the cycle of continuing resolutions and a lack of actual budget? Yes or no, and why?
Yes, I would. Career politicians continue to spend money that we don't have. And we continue to do continuing resolutions and adding earmarks to it. So if that's what we need to do to get to a single subject spending bill and actually get our budget under control, I'm willing to do that.
All right, that's time. Andre.
Yes, absolutely. I think the problem we've had too many continuing resolutions. We continue to just punt it 3 months, 6 months down the road. Yeah, it's absolutely critical that we don't just have, as my competitors have both basically said in past forums, they want to be team players.
That's time.
We have
I got to move forward. Roger.
Yes, I would. And I think it's important. We've got to break the cycle in Washington right now. They're addicted to spending, plain and simple. And we've got to be able to use all levers in Congress. You have the power of the purse. The good news is Trump's winning this election. And
That's time. Sorry, time is very, very short. We have to be able to get to closing statements at 52. All right, I have another 15-second question, and then we have the possibility to clarify an issue. Now, I'm going to explain for the audience listening that's not here. We had a dispute earlier about what was said or not said involving the president of the Fox Valley Initiative, Ed Perkins. Ed Perkins has come here. He was informed of that. We cannot do it at this moment. What I'm going to ask is that as the broadcast ends, that you remain on stage for the sake of the audience. The media that's covering it is free to continue covering it, but the confines of the time we were given, I can't do it right this moment. But Ed came, and I want to give him the opportunity to clarify that record. We have a lot of questions on education. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to give you 2 yes or no questions. It'll be a 15-second answer for both questions together, but they should be pretty straightforward. Tony, should men be allowed to compete in women's sports, and would you support the elimination of the Department of Education as a member of Congress, yes or no?
No, men should not be able to play in women's sports, and I give the Department of Education a big F, a big
So is that a
failing grade.
yes on closing it?
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Andre,
No, men should not be allowed in women's sports, and yes, we need to eliminate the Federal Department of Education.
all right. Roger,
No on the first question, yes on the second. Department of Education came about in 1979. Does anyone think education is improved in America over the last 40 years? It's time to send that back to the states.
so look at that. There's unity. Everyone agrees. All right, we're going to move to closing statements so we can keep the clock rolling on time. We were going reverse order because Tony got the first, Andre was the second, Roger was the third. So Roger, you get the first 2-minute closing statement. Please begin now.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with all of you this evening. It's been an incredible week. If you look back just to last Saturday with the miraculous providence here sparing the life of President Trump, to this last week where the Republicans in Milwaukee instituted the plan laid out for America, the vision for the future of this nation. And I fit into that, the Republican Party, if you watch that convention, we are now the working party. We are the party of the men and women who build things in this country. I am a 25-year home builder, 20-year veteran in the National Guard here in Wisconsin with 4 deployments to the Middle East. I'm the guy that can go to Washington and represent this party. In fact, just about a week and a half ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was on a construction site pouring concrete on the I-41 corridor on one of the bridges. And it was just incredible to see these men and women out there. These are the ones building America. And I was asking for their vote in between striking off the concrete. They are excited to have someone in Washington that represents them, represents the middle class, knows the pressures of what it's like to put a tight budget together at your kitchen table. I stand before you tonight as the candidate that can go to Washington and deliver on day one and bring about the home building experience, the military experience, the legislative experience, and with my wife and 5 kids, understand how that all affects hardworking Wisconsin families. I ask for your vote, and I ask for your prayers these next 25 days, and I look forward to walking forward together to again rebuild the foundations of our great American republic.
Thank you, Roger. Second up, Andre Jacque.
Thank you. Well, I again would like to thank the crowd here tonight, Regular Joe, our media partners, Providence Academy. It's an honor to fight for the people of Northeast Wisconsin. You know my record. I'm proud to be the proven conservative in this race. We have far too few people that actually have shown that they can come through the fire and stand up to the pressure. I've been doing it in Madison. I'm willing to go to Washington, D.C., and upset as many apple carts as I need to to finally address the root problems that are causing so much trouble here in Wisconsin. Very proud to again be the candidate who's trusted by law enforcement, again by the majority of Republican sheriffs here in the 8th District, the Professional Police Association of Wisconsin, National Association of Police Organizations, Wisconsin Conservative Digest, and quite frankly, the people that many in this room I fought alongside in the trenches of the conservative movement for many years. You know, we've heard all kinds of attacks about career politicians over this election cycle. You know, the reality is that I'm the one that, at my own political peril, have targeted the establishment and the special interests. And that includes the actual leaders of various chambers in Wisconsin government. Going back to when I helped Glenn Grothman defeat Mary Panzer, then the sitting Senate Majority Leader, 80 to 20%. It would be an extreme honor to continue to represent Northeast Wisconsin now that I've been drawn out of my district. I would love to continue to serve the great people of the Northeast Wisconsin. So thank you very much tonight.
Thank you. Tony Wied, you get the final closing statement.
Well, thank you again, Providence Academy. Thank you, Joe Gigante, for hosting here tonight. It is my honor to be a part of this process here tonight. You know, as a political outsider, as somebody that was endorsed by our next president, Donald J. Trump, it is truly an honor to have that. I'm inspired by President Trump. Look, he came out of the business sector. He had nothing to gain other than that he wanted to help this country, and he did an amazing job for those 4 years. And he's going to do an amazing job in these next 4 years when we elect him president. He endorsed me because I'm like him. I was an outsider. I was somebody that spent my life raising my family. That was my most important job, being a good husband and a good father. I spent the rest of my time running my business to provide for my family. And I worked hard, day and night, 7 days a week in a 24/7 business. And through that, I learned the lessons of running and having a budget, and having the grit, determination, and hard work to stick with it, to continue, to never quit, and failure is never an option. And I think the Founding Fathers never intended for there to be career politicians. They wanted us to go out and gain worldly experience, whether that was on your farm, maybe you were a teacher, maybe you were a doctor, mature, and then go to Congress, go to Washington for a short time, and actually serve and be a representative for the people in your district. This is the house of the people. And I want to make public service my sole mission. I was blessed with selling my business. My kids are in college, and I want to put everything I have. My wife and I are all in. We've done everything together to serve each and every one of you. And again, I'm not a politician. I'm not a career politician. And when I'm done, and I will serve for a limited period of time, and I guarantee you I will come back home where I belong. And I won't be joining a board or a lobby or being part of some political PAC, which is what career politicians do day in and day out. I ask for your support. I ask for your vote. Vote me in. I will not let you down, and I will never quit. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for all three candidates here tonight. As you can see, there is plenty that we could be asking. We have literally 4 pages more of questions that we weren't able to get to. Now, as I said, I'm asking for Andre Jacque and Tony Wied to remain with us after we sign off from the broadcast. Those that are interested in hearing the resolution, Ed Perkins, the president of the Fox Valley Initiative, took time to come up tonight because there's a dispute over what was said. I think it's important to get to the bottom of these things for the simple fact that you have an all-important job on August 13th. That is to choose the person that will best represent the values that matter to you, that represent the beliefs and the positions that you support. And of course, we need clarity and honesty and transparency as part of that. And you had the chance to hear them tonight, to hear the answers they gave, where they agree, where they disagree. And this is all part of the job of being the sovereigns of this nation. We are electing somebody that is ultimately our employee. So this is a job interview that they just went through a 2-hour, rather grueling job interview, but the job of interviewing them and testing them is not done between now and August 13th. You need to make sure you're asking those questions, You're getting those answers so that you can know that you're filling out the ballot for the right person. We have I believe it was Roger mentioned, kind of a once bitten, twice bitten, now twice shy situation in the 8th Congressional District. It is a conservative district. We want to make sure we are sending a conservative to Washington that is unafraid, as we saw, by the way, the picture of unafraid from Donald Trump this past Saturday. A man tried to end his life, and he stood back up and wanted to keep going, but they wouldn't allow him for obvious reasons. So we need that kind of leadership at every level. I thank everyone for being here tonight. I thank all who are listening and watching, and this is what we do. Thank you all very much. I'm Joe Gigante, your regular Joe. We will see you Monday, and live life boldly. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Do you mind remaining here for a second so we can clarify?
We'll talk over here.
Ed, I'm going to actually have you take Roger's podium, and you guys can take your podiums. Can you hang on? You can cut that, but we can disconnect. But hey, I get to say hi to you. Well, I wanted the crowd to be able to hear. What are you trying to do? I just going to ask him to clarify. 2 different people are placing. Well,